Picture this. You're in a meeting. Someone is presenting a plan that has a glaring flaw. Everyone can see it, but nobody says anything. Or maybe you've been that person who spoke up once, got shut down and decided never again. Has that ever happened to you? Or have you watched it happen to someone else? We've talked about psychological safety a lot on this channel. How informal leaders create it, how it enables experiments, how it's essential for real agility. But here's what keeps me up at night. What if you're accidentally damaging it? What if your team is sitting on brilliant ideas, critical warnings, or game-changing innovations, and they're too scared to tell you? Today we're going deep. What psychological safety actually means, how to spot it when it's missing, even when things seem fine, and most importantly, how to create it, whether you're the CEO or the newest intern. Because here's the thing. You don't have to be in a toxic hellhole to benefit from better psychological safety. Most organizations are in disasters. They're just okay. But in a world where the best idea needs to win, being okay at psychological safety is like competing with one hand tied behind your back. Today you'll discover what psychological safety really means and how to create it. I'll show you the exact framework Amy Edmondson used to help teams go from silence to breakthrough innovation, how to spot the warning signs that your team might be psychologically unsafe, even if things seem fine, and most importantly, practical techniques you can use tomorrow, whether you're the CEO or just started last week. Let's clear something up. Psychological safety isn't about being nice. It's not about lowering standards, and it definitely isn't about creating some kumbaya comfort zone where nobody ever feels challenged. Amy Edmondson from Harvard, who literally wrote the book on this, defines it simply. Psychological safety is a shared belief that the team is safe for interpersonal risk-taking. Interpersonal risk-taking, that's the key phrase. It means feeling safe to ask the stupid question that might save the project, admit you don't understand something everyone else seems to get, point out the emperor has no clothes, say I screwed up without career suicide, challenge your boss's favorite idea, share the wild idea that might just work, ask for help when you're struggling. And here's what blew my mind when I first learned about this. The concept isn't new. Edgar Schein and Warren Bennis were talking about it back in 1965. They saw it as essential for organizational change. You can't unfreeze old patterns if people are terrified to try new ones. But it was Edmondson's 1999 research that revealed the paradox. She was studying medical teams expecting to find the best teams made fewer mistakes. Instead, the best teams reported more errors. Wait, what? Turns out they weren't making more mistakes, they were just the only ones honest enough to talk about them. And that honesty, that's what made them better. They caught problems faster, learned quicker, and ultimately delivered better patient care. Think about what this means for your organization. Every unreported near miss is a disaster waiting to happen. Every unshared concern is a blind spot growing bigger. Every suppressed innovation is competitive advantage handed to someone else. Here's something I need you to understand. You don't have to work in a fear-based culture to have psychological safety problems. Even good organizations, maybe especially good organizations, can accidentally create silence. Remember Google's Project Aristotle? They studied 180 teams trying to identify what made some teams exceptional. Technical skills? Nope. Experience? Not really. Personality mix? Irrelevant. The number one factor? Psychological safety. Not number 3, not important but not essential. Number 1. And Google isn't exactly known for having a toxic culture. These were already successful teams in a successful company. But the difference between good teams and great teams, whether people felt safe to take interpersonal risks. McKinsey found that only 26% of leaders create psychological safety. That means even in decent organizations, 3/4 of teams are operating with their best ideas locked in people's heads, their biggest risks going unreported, their innovations dying in silence. Here's a story that illustrates this perfectly. Wells Fargo wasn't known as a toxic workplace before their scandal. But employees faced quotas of selling 8 products per customer, the Going for Great initiative. The pressure wasn't always explicit threats, but when one employee called the ethics hotline to report impossible goals, she was fired. The message was clear. Unable to speak up about unrealistic targets, employees opened 3.5 million fake accounts. The cost? Over $3 billion in fines, 5,300 employees terminated, CEO resignation. They weren't in an obviously toxic environment, they just weren't in a psychologically safe one. Let me give you another example from Edmondson's research. She studied 16 cardiac surgery teams learning minimally invasive techniques. The most successful team was led by Dr. M at Mountain Medical Center, a young surgeon with zero prior experience in this procedure. But here's how Dr. M created psychological safety. He reframed the entire project. Instead of treating it as executing a new technique, he framed it as a learning experiment where everyone's expertise was essential. He told his team, hey, you guys have got to make this thing work. He explicitly emphasized interdependence, that the surgeon couldn't succeed without the nurse's observations, the anesthesiologist's adjustments, the perfusionist's timing. He structured practice sessions, debriefs, and made team learning the explicit goal. One team member said he created a free and open environment with input from everybody. Compare that to Dr. C at Chelsea Hospital, renowned surgeon, 60+ prior procedures. He framed it as mastering a technical skill. He maintained traditional hierarchy where proper decorum was his big thing. The team never developed shared ownership of the learning process. After 20 cases, he admitted, it doesn't seem to be getting that much better. The lesson? Creating psychological safety isn't just about being nice or reducing hierarchy, it's about how leaders frame the work itself. When you frame challenges as learning problems requiring everyone's contribution, not execution problems requiring compliance, you create the conditions where psychological safety can flourish. Dr. M didn't just tell people it was safe to speak up, he made speaking up essential for the team's success. So how do you know if psychological safety is missing? The obvious signs are easy. People cowering in fear, public humiliation, blame games. But most organizations aren't that dramatic. The signs are subtler. The meeting after the meeting. Everyone nods in the room, then the real conversation happens in the hallway. Can you believe that plan? I know, right, but I'm not saying anything. The polite silence. Brainstorming sessions that feel like pulling teeth. The same 3 people always talk. Everyone else is suddenly fascinated by their notebooks. When you ask any questions, you get silence, but you know there are questions. The careful dance. People choose words like they're defusing a bomb. Lots of this might be wrong but, or I'm probably missing something but. That's not humility, that's fear. Real humility sounds like I don't know, not I'm probably too stupid to understand. The missing bad news. Everything is always fine or on track. Problems only surface when they're too big to hide. Near misses go unreported, concerns get buried until they explode. The seniority bias. Ideas get traction based on who said them, not their merit. Junior people rarely speak in meetings with senior folks. When they do, it's just to agree or ask clarifying questions, never to challenge or build. The innovation desert. New ideas have stopped flowing. People execute tasks and don't suggest improvements. That's how we always done it, becomes the answer to everything. Here's a diagnostic question. When was the last time someone junior challenged a senior person's idea in a meeting? Not rudely, but substantively. If you can't remember, you have a problem. Or try this. How often do people admit they don't understand something? In psychologically safe teams, I don't understand is common. In unsafe teams, everyone pretends they get it and Google frantically afterward. Before we dive into the how-to, let me share a framework that changed how I think about this. Timothy Clark, in his book The 4 Stages of Psychological Safety, argues that safety isn't binary, it develops in stages. Stage number 1, inclusion safety. Do I belong here? Can I be myself without being rejected? This is baseline human needs stuff. If people don't feel included, nothing else matters. They won't risk speaking up if they're not even sure they belong. Stage number 2, learner safety. Is it safe to ask questions, experiment, make mistakes? Can I admit I don't know something without being seen as incompetent? This is where growth begins. Stage number 3, contributor safety. Can I use my skills and abilities to make a difference? Will my contributions be valued? This is where people start adding real value. Stage number 4, challenger safety. Can I challenge the status quo? Can I disagree with the boss? Can I point out problems without being labeled a troublemaker? This is where innovation lives. Here's the crucial insight. These stages build on each other. You can't have challenger safety without the others. People won't challenge ideas if they don't feel included, can't learn, or aren't valued as contributors. Most organizations think they want stage 4. They want innovation and constructive challenge, but they haven't built the foundation. They're asking people to challenge the status quo when those people don't even feel safe asking questions. Think about your own team. Where are you on this progression? Be honest. Maybe you have inclusion down, but people still hide their mistakes. That's stage 1, but not stage 2. Or maybe people contribute ideas but never challenge existing ones. That's stage 3, but not stage 4. Now for the practical stuff. How do you actually create psychological safety? Let's go deep on this, because the details matter. Edmondson's 3-step framework is brilliant, but let me unpack that with real specifics. Step number 1. Frame the work as learning, not just execution. This isn't just about saying we're all learning, it's about fundamentally changing how you present challenges. Here's how it sounds different. Execution framing. Here's the plan. Let's execute it flawlessly. Learning framing. Here's our hypothesis. Let's find out if we are right and adjust as we learn. Execution framing. We need to hit these numbers. Learning framing. We are aiming for these numbers. What will we learn whether we hit them or not? Execution framing. Don't bring me problems, bring me solutions. Learning framing. Bring me problems early, even if you don't have solutions yet. When you frame work as learning, mistakes become data, not failures. Questions become contributions, not admissions of ignorance. Here's a practical technique. Start every project kickoff with what you don't know. Here are our 3 biggest uncertainties. That gives everyone permission to discover problems, not just execute plans. Step number 2, admit your own fallibility and make it specific. Generic humility doesn't work. I don't know everything is too vague. Get specific. I'm historically bad at estimating timelines. Please push back if my timeline seems unrealistic. Or, I tend to get excited about new ideas and miss practical constraints. Help me stay grounded. Or, I wasn't there when this started, so I'm missing context. What am I not seeing? But here's the key. You have to respond well when people take you up on this. The first time someone says, actually, I think you're wrong about that, your reaction sets the tone forever. Try this. Share a specific mistake you made recently and what you've learned. Not ancient history, something current. Last week I made a decision without consulting the team and we missed an obvious issue. I'm working on slowing down to gather input. Step 3. Ask questions and master the follow-up. Asking questions isn't enough. It's how you respond to the answers that matters. Here's the formula. 1. Ask a genuine question, not a leading one. 2. Listen without interrupting. 3. Respond with curiosity, not judgment. 4. Thank them for the input. 5. Act on it visibly when appropriate. Examples of powerful questions. What are you seeing that I might be missing? Or, if you were in my position, what would worry you? Or, what's the thing nobody says out loud? Or, if we fail, what will probably have caused it? And master these follow-up phrases. Tell me more about that. Or, what makes you think that? Set with curiosity, not challenge. Or, how confident are you in that assessment? What would need to be true for that to work? Middle management is actually the sweet spot for creating psychological safety. You're close enough to the work to understand the real challenges, but you have enough authority to create change. Here's how. Create a team charter. Don't wait for organizational culture to change. Create your own team's culture. Sit down with your team and explicitly agree on norms. For example, in our team, questions are gifts. We attack problems, not people. Mistakes are learning opportunities if we share them quickly. Dissent is valuable. We want to hear different views. Write these down. Reference them regularly. When someone violates them, including you, call it out gently. Be the translator. Your job is to translate pressure from above into purpose for your team. When your boss says, this has to be perfect, you translate that to your team as, this is important, so let's make sure we catch any issues early. Run structured experiments. Use your authority to create safe spaces for risk-taking. For this sprint, we are trying something new. If it doesn't work, I'll take the heat. Let's learn something. Institute learning rituals. Build psychological safety in your team's routine. Start meetings with, what did we learn this week? End projects with blameless retrospectives. Create failure parties where people share mistakes and lessons. Have regular stupid question sessions. Shield and support. When your team members take risks and fail, be their shield. When they succeed, be their megaphone. People need to know you have their backs. Here's where we need to talk about courage. Because yes, in an ideal world, it shouldn't take courage to share an idea or ask a question. But we don't live in an ideal world, and sometimes someone needs to go first. You might be thinking, easy for you to say, you're not risking your job. Fair point. So let's talk about smart courage, taking calculated risks that open doors for others. Start ridiculously small. Don't challenge the CEO's strategy in your first move. Start with low-stakes situations. Ask a clarifying question in a small meeting. Admit confusion about something minor. Share a small mistake and what you learned. Build your courage muscle gradually. Each small risk that doesn't result in disaster makes the next one easier. Use the power of we. Instead of I don't understand, try could we clarify this for everyone? Instead of I disagree, try what if you looked at this way? This feels safer and includes others who might be thinking the same thing. Be the question asker. Become known as the person who asks the questions others are thinking. Start with genuinely curious questions, not challenging ones. How does this connect to our earlier discussion about X? Is safer than, won't this conflict with X? Model intellectual humility. Admit when you're wrong. Change your mind publicly when presented with better information. Say, I don't know when you don't know. This gives others permission to do the same. Support other risk takers. When someone else speaks up, support them. Even a simple, that's a good point, or I was wondering the same thing, can make a huge difference. You're building an alliance of courage. Use data as your shield. When challenging ideas, lead with data rather than opinion. The data suggests feels less confrontational than I think. It's harder to punish someone for pointing out facts. Here's a documented example of courage creating safety. When Cynthia Carroll became CEO of Anglo American Mining in 2007, the company had suffered 200 worker fatalities in 5 years. Instead of accepting this as part of the industry, she did something unprecedented. She shut down the most dangerous mines until safety could be improved. The financial cost was enormous, but Carroll went further. She used traditional South African village assemblies to ask workers directly, what do we need to do to create a work environment of care and respect? This gave even the lowest level miners permission to speak up about safety concerns. She had workers and executives sign a shared safety contract. She retrained 30,000 plus workers. The result? Fatalities dropped from 44 in 2006 to 17 in 2011, a 62% reduction, while achieving the company's highest operating profits in history. She didn't wait for the industry to change, she just started acting if worker safety and their voices mattered more than production quotas. Here's what I've learned watching teams transform. Psychological safety isn't built in grand gestures, it's built in moments. Every time someone speaks up and isn't punished, others notice. Every mistake discussed without blame becomes permission for honesty. Every stupid question that leads to insight makes the next question easier. But the reverse is also true. One public humiliation can silence a team for months. One messenger shot delivers the message loud and clear. Keep your head down. That's why consistency matters more than intensity. Better to create small moments of safety every day than to declare a psychological safety initiative that fades after a month. Think of it like compound interest. A 1% improvement in psychological safety each week doesn't feel like much, but compounded over a year, that's transformation. Let's get specific about what you can actually do. The check-in round? Start meetings with a quick round where everyone shares one thing, a concern, a learning, a question. Everyone speaks, no one responds until everyone has shared. This breaks the ice and establishes that all voices matter. The pre-mortem? Before launching a project, imagine it failed spectacularly. Now work backward. What went wrong? This makes it safe to voice concerns because you're discussing a hypothetical failure, not challenging current plans. The anonymous questions box? Digital or physical, create a way for people to ask questions anonymously. Address them publicly. This helps you understand what people aren't comfortable saying out loud. The mistake of the month? Celebrate the best mistake, the one that taught the most valuable lesson. Make it prestigious to share failures that led to learning. The devil's advocate role? Rotate who plays devil's advocate in meetings. When it's someone's assigned role to challenge ideas, it feels less risky. The psychological safety assessment? Use Amy Edmondson's 7-item scale with your team. Discuss the results openly. Where are you strong? Where do you need work? The learning log. Keep a team log of lessons learned, not just from failures, but from successes too. What did we think would happen? What actually happened? What did we learn? If you want to dive deeper, start with Amy Edmondson's The Fearless Organization. It's the definitive guide full of research and practical applications. Timothy Clark's 4 Stages of Psychological Safety gives you the progressive framework for building safety systematically. Google's Rework site has free tools and assessments you can use with your team. They've open sourced their learnings from Project Aristotle. For those dealing with particularly challenging environments, Crucial Conversations by Carrie Patterson et al. Offers specific techniques for speaking up when stakes are high and emotions run strong. It's about how to have difficult conversations safely, not just whether to have them. But honestly, you don't need to read everything to start. You just need to do one thing. Make it a little bit safer for someone to speak up. Then, do it again tomorrow. Here's something important. Psychological safety isn't a destination. It's not something you achieve and then you're done. It's a continuous practice, like fitness. You can't go to the gym intensively for a month, get fit, and then stop. Similarly, you can't create psychological safety and then ignore it. It requires constant attention, adjustment, and reinforcement. And, just like fitness, different situations require different approaches. A crisis might temporarily reduce psychological safety. People naturally get more cautious under extreme pressure. Your job is to consciously counteract that, to be even more intentional about creating safety when the stakes are high. Every day, in every interaction, you're either building or eroding psychological safety. There is no neutral. That dismissive comment in the meeting, that eye roll when someone asks a question, they subtract from safety. But the genuine "tell me more," the public appreciation of candor, the mistake treated as learning, these create the conditions where people can do their best work. Here's what I know. Somewhere in your organization, someone has the idea that could change everything, the question that could prevent disaster, the innovation that could define your future. They're just waiting for it to be safe enough to speak. What if your small act of courage today creates a space for someone else's breakthrough tomorrow? You don't need permission to start. You don't need the perfect environment. You just need the courage to act as if psychological safety already exists, and, in doing so, help create it. If this resonated with you, hit subscribe. We're building a community of people who believe work can be better than this. Share this with that colleague who has great ideas but stays quiet in meetings. You know exactly who I'm thinking of. And here's my challenge. In the comments, share a moment when someone made it safe for you to be honest. What did they do? How did it change things? Let's learn from each other's experiences, because creating psychological safety isn't a solo sport. It happens when we all start taking small risks together. Next time, we've talked about psychological safety, but that's just one of 5 core skills that separate real leaders from mere managers. I'll reveal why so many managers mistake being busy with being helpful, why servant leadership can become an excuse to avoid making hard decisions, and what your team actually needs from you beyond just a safe space to speak. Spoiler, they need you to actually lead. This is the Liberty Framework. Let's make it safe to be brilliant.